What's going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today we're going to talk to you about Faraday Future. I want to go over what everyone has been asking, what the hell has been happening this last several trading days. So I want to go over things that you need to know and everything else. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off, even though on Friday it did go down 10.07%, taking a step back over this last 5 days, it is up 75.42. So kind of a small win, if that does make sense. But again, a lot of people are still very curious on what the fuck has been happening. So when I go through data points, there is no true definitive answer. It is still up to interpretation. So after all said and done, once I go through all the data points, there's ultimately two different scenarios that could have caused this to happen. Right now, I will give you a spoiler alert. We don't know yet. We just have to ultimately wait and see. So I want to go over everything. But starting off, just on Friday alone, 77.8 million shares were traded. If we kind of go over here to the historical, on the 22nd, 153.4 million shares were traded. 10 million on the 21st, 6.7 million on the 20th. So the reverse stock split, as you can kind of even see right here, did take place on the 19th. So post reverse stock split, as far as what the general public does know, there's around 12.4, if I remember correctly, million for the outstanding share count. So essentially, yeah, that's kind of a good benchmark to have, right? So with that said, though, based on the amount of transactions that have been occurring, so like within the first 15 minutes of both the 23rd and also the 22nd, there was more shares being traded than the outstanding share count. And these are all some of the transactions that have been occurring on the secondary market, as you can kind of see. So this is a normal day for Faraday, typically. So one transaction, usually none. This, over this last 2 days, has been absolutely fire. Insane amounts. And I know I'm going a little bit too fast, my apologies, but I'm just kind of painting a picture. The fact that big money was really supporting it. So it goes back to my main point on how there is two real scenarios that could have caused all this. One of which, I know some people don't want to hear, but I really don't give a shit. I just say how it is. Could be excessive dilution. We already know Faraday has really needed a lot of money. That's why they wanted to raise the authorized shares. So yeah, they have to pay a lot of bills, and one way to do that is dilution. So essentially more shares out, and that would make a little bit more sense on why, from our interpretation, we last know it is 12.4 million for whatever it is, 153.4 million shares to be traded. So once again, there's that avenue that there is just a lot of dilution happening. Part B to that, or kind of a second option, is truly like naked shorting or synthetic shares, if you want to kind of consider it that way. And normally, like, I like to follow data, and regrettably, naked shorting is very hard to track. And so you kind of have to look at failure to delivers. We don't have failure to delivers for right now, all right? It's always delayed. So essentially, it's hard to really prove that. But based on just the level of transactions occurring, it's insane, the fact that these it doesn't make sense, if all in all. And keep in mind, there's these separate transactions, and you also had shorts. So even shorts on Friday increased around 77 or 78,000 shares. And keep in mind, that is net, right? So they've been trading back and forth, and I'm sure a lot of people have been, but still, if you factor in the level of shorts and just the transactions occurring on institutions, it could be, once again, naked shorting. Or just synthetic shares, like I said. So it's a interesting scenario. And my last video that I did cover on Faraday, I did say the reason why it was essentially going down as soon as the market did open was because of options. So I'm going to finish up with this and then I'll touch on options in a second. But 12.03% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 1.48 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost of our average is 18.01, so a little bit higher. And so obviously cost to borrow is influenced by supply and demand, so that's obviously playing a part in that. Utilization 93.35, and then short score, so the higher the number, the higher the likelihood of a squeeze happening, is 70.04. So you kind of have to take this with a grain of salt. Again, if you go through option A, as what I mentioned, if there is excessive dilution, then this number is going to be wrong and very skewed, similar to what happened back over here when it did indicate that Faraday had 128.85% short interest, whereas essentially Faraday was diluting like tenfold. So again, without the current outstanding share count, we're just left in the dark. So this is why, like I said, despite me going over all the data that is available, you kind of have to use your own due diligence and believe one of those two options. It does come down to one of those two things. Either there is truly a lot of naked shares happening or either excessive dilution. So that's one of the two. And when it comes to synthetics, a lot could be created through options. So there's new chains that did start. So again, my last video that I did go over Faraday, there was that new chains that did start exactly on the same day that I mentioned it was going to happen. So this is why, like I said, I like to go over the data and give you guys a good overview of when things are truly going to happen based on my previous experience. I'm not here to influence you guys. I really could give no shits whether you guys are buying, selling, or whatever you guys are doing. I'm just here to interpret the data. And I've been getting, surprisingly, more than I would have thought, number of just comments saying, hey, where's your Faraday video? Like, what's up? What's going on? What's going on? So even though I did say in my last video I wasn't going to do any more until either news came out or compliance, yeah, you know what? I just wanted to do it for all the individuals that truly want to know what the hell is happening. So as far as on Friday, there was 2.67 million in calls, 2.35 million in puts. Options on Faraday have been rather popular, a lot more than I think was originally forecasted, because when it first came out, they only had monthly chains, but market makers clearly saw a demand for that, so they made weeklies. Still not to the same regard, but it's still very popular. Initially, they only had up until $7 as a strike price, and so they did also extend that to 17. That, in my opinion, could be interpreted as positive. So they see it feasible for it to go up to those levels. Of course, if it gets to kind of 17 range, they could kind of extend it and so forth. But yeah, definitely, I like looking at options because it shows sentiment and where people do believe that is truly going to go. So that's a whole different level of kind of analysis, due diligence. So I highly recommend you guys kind of just looking at the open interest, volatility, delta on options, because it kind of it does show where the broader market and big money does feel that Faraday is going to get into. Because don't ever second guess it, because this amount of money that is getting in through Faraday just in premiums, that is big institutions. So when shorts are essentially increasing, they instantly would be hedging with options. So it goes hand in hand. So this is exactly what big money is truly feeling. So this is kind of the open interest. Like I said, these chains just opened, so you don't see any. I believe it actually opened on Friday, in fact. So something to kind of consider. So we'll just have to analyze that information going into next week. But like I said already, don't anticipate daily updates on Faraday until either concrete news does come out, or compliance. So essentially this last week, they have been 5 days above $1. So that is all going to be counted. I don't want to get on that hot topic of whether it is truly 10 days or the 20 or between the two, but we'll just have to, again, wait and see. Ultimately, beginning of September, that is when we will find out whether the NASDAQ does serve Faraday with that. But again, I'm not going to get into that. So let me know your thoughts on those two options. Ultimately, do you think that it is excessive dilution, or do you think that there is truly naked shorting happening with Faraday? So what's your thoughts? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And make sure you guys take advantage of this promo. Simply sign up for a new account, throw $100 at it. They give you 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. Take advantage of this. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.